If you're a founder, you know that fundraising is a big part of the job. What you might not know is that Carta is there to help. Carta's new fundraising suite provides startups of all stages the best tools and support to easily issue safes, accurately forecast dilution, and quickly close funding rounds. Save time, money, and make your next round your best yet. To learn more or to get started, go to carta.com/fundraise. That's carta.com/fundraise.
The IKEA Business Network is now open for small businesses and entrepreneurs. Take your small business to the next level when you sign up for IKEA Business Network for free today at IKEA.com.
Welcome to Inc. for Starters with Alexa Von Tobel. I'm Alexa, a serial entrepreneur myself and founder and managing partner of Inspired Capital, a venture firm that backs fearless founders who are solving some of the biggest challenges facing humanity. Now in our 6th season, we sit down each week with one of the best founders on the planet to hear their story of guts, inspiration, and drive. Let's dive right in. Hi, everybody. I'm your host, Alexa Von Tobel. And this week, I'm so excited for you to meet Andrew Lacy, the founder and CEO of Prenuvo, the company pioneering proactive whole body imaging for the early detection of cancer and other diseases. Andrew launched Prenuvo in 2018 and has since expanded the business across North America, establishing Prenuvo as a recognized and trusted proactive healthcare service to both patients and referring clinicians. Andrew is a seasoned entrepreneur with extensive experience taking transformative products from conception to scale. His notable achievements include playing an influential role in the development of the iPhone apps ecosystem as co-founder of Tapulous, later acquired by Walt Disney Company. In addition to his entrepreneurial pursuits, Andrew has held key leadership consulting, strategic, financial, and product roles across international companies, including McKinsey and the Walt Disney Company. Andrew also serves as an advisor and investor across a diverse portfolio of startups. Andrew received his MBA from Stanford University and a JD from the University of Melbourne. And with that, let's welcome Andrew. Andrew, as a mother, as somebody who cares so much about health, I have 3 little kids. I am a central part in taking care of the health of everyone in my orbit. I love the fact that we can now play offense. So what's Prenuvo in your own words?
Sure. So at Prenuvo, we use research-grade MRIs to take clinical diagnostic images of your body in about 45 minutes, where we can go from head to toe. We screen for cancer at stage 1 and 500 other conditions that, if left unchecked, can significantly affect your health span. So we have a healthcare system that's reactive. We are considered by our doctors and the health system as being normal until maybe one day we're diagnosed with late-stage disease, and we're really working hard to challenge that paradigm so that rather than looking at a health with hindsight, we can really look at health from the point of view of foresight.
Let's go back to the early days in 2018. What was the aha moment?
Well, there was actually 2 pieces, if I'm being honest. The first is I entered my early 40s and I was an entrepreneur that worked too hard and didn't sleep enough and didn't exercise as much as I should have and didn't eat as healthily as I could have. And it was on the course of my own health journey that I ran into a radiologist in Vancouver, Canada, of all places, that were doing these incredible scans. I went and got a scan myself. I learned more about my health in 1 hour than the health system had told me my entire life. It felt like the closest thing to a Star Trek level experience. And I asked myself the question, why is this not everywhere? And should this be my focus? And then the second, I guess, aha really came from when I came back to the Silicon Valley and started talking to physicians. And there was such tremendous negativity about whole body screening from the people I spoke to. But as I really started asking enough questions, I realized that that negativity was not rooted in real actual knowledge of how the technology of MRI had advanced. And it was this sort of information asymmetry that really led me to, I think that's where great companies get built. And so that's why I decided to dedicate my life to really bringing this technology to as many people as possible.
Let's talk a little bit about what it's like to get a scan and how it works and what's happening while someone's lying in an MRI for an hour. Tell us.
Sure. So first of all, a patient reaches out to us or books online and we get them in. We have a medical practitioner that checks to make sure the scan is appropriate for them. And if so, we bring them in and a patient lies in the machine for about 45 minutes. We place on your body a set of what we call coils, and these listen to the very faint signal given off by hydrogen in your body as we excite it with the MRI machine. we use a technique that's called multi-parametric MRI. So we're imaging the same organ in your body up to 15 times. And each of those times that we image that organ, we're filtering for different tissue compositions. So we're able to filter for fat or for blood or for proteinaceous tissue and so on. And when we combine all these images, we're essentially able to look inside the body and do in vivo histology without having to open up your skin. And this is how these techniques are so sensitive for cancer and disease. After 45 minutes, you jump out of the machine. You usually have a snack, have a chat with the folks at the front desk, and then your images are being sent to our team of radiologists, where over the next 3 to 5 days, they're being read by a professional radiologist trained in these Prenuvo approaches. And then a patient receives back a full and complete report where we go through every organ of your body, what we see, what we don't see, and for things we see, what should you do about it as a patient? And the goal is to really empower you to take control of your health.
I want to talk a little bit about the technology that really is the big technical unlock that has allowed Prenuvo to exist. And I just want to get a sense of like what had to happen. So you went from your first scan where you experienced it and you were like, why is everyone not doing this? What did you have to navigate to get there? And talk a little bit about navigating the FDA.
Well, there was sort of three big unlocks that made the service possible. You could get whole body diagnostic quality MRI exams before. You would do them at Harvard Hospital or Stanford Hospital, and they were typically performed on people that had a cancer predisposition syndrome. So people that were absolutely going to get cancer multiple times in life, and it was just a question of where and when. And those scans took 3 to 4 hours. And oftentimes they required, particularly for younger people, sedation or anesthetic just to get you through the scan. And so the first unlock really was the hardware. And the hardware that we use is the Ferrari of MRI machines. We build them in Europe, we fly them out, and they're able to image patients 3 to 4 times faster. The second unlock was around a particular imaging sequence that we do that's quite unique. And it's a sequence called diffusion weighted imaging. And this sequence is able to look for hardness inside the body. Why is looking for hardness important? Well, first and foremost, because almost all solid tumors are harder than the surrounding tissue. This is why women are told to feel their breast for lumps. Not every lump is a cancer, but every cancer is a lump. And so we're able to, with this machine, feel digitally for solid lesions in parts of the body that you can't feel with your own hands. And this was the second unlock. And then the third was around AI. And here we worked with manufacturers to actually implement AI acceleration in the sequences that we use in order to, again, image a lot faster or in the same amount of time, image with much greater detail. We've been lucky that the manufacturers have helped us with the FDA clearance, but we also have a lot of FDA products right now that are going through that process.
Let's look ahead a little bit and let's think about how AI is going to influence your product over the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years. What do you see? How can AI make these scans even more effective?
There's three areas of innovation that we are most excited about. The first is the one I just mentioned, which is how do we use AI to get this scan from 45 minutes down to 10 to 15 minutes? Because at 10 to 15 minutes, it's a lot more tolerable for patients. And these machines and the service is very expensive. So the more patients we can get through the clinics in a given day, the cheaper we can make those scans for everyone. The second area of AI is where a lot of people are focusing, which is AI that basically diagnoses disease. And here we have models that are running in every organ of the body. And we're able to, through these models, identify aneurysms or tumors or issues with the spine or issues with related to sort of inflammation of organs. And so we're running a lot of these models internally, initially to assist radiologists to be more accurate. But eventually, as these models get cleared, we can perhaps start even thinking about them working alongside the radiologist, more like a second look to help speed up and make radiologists more productive. And then the third area, which is the area I'm most excited about, is using AI to identify changes in our body as we age that are too small or too slight for the radiologists to notice themselves. And here it's about giving you feedback in the way you live your life and how it's impacting your underlying physiology. So we're able to use AI to identify very small changes in brain volume or very small changes in spinal degeneration. And the goal here is to be able to tell you years, if not decades before perhaps you're symptomatic, about how your body is aging and what areas you need to focus on in order to age, I guess, more gracefully.
Let's talk a little bit about so insurance providers do not yet cover services like Prenuvo. And I know you've been working really hard to bring down the cost because obviously this is a product that we would love everyone on the planet to be able to get the benefits of. How do you think about access? How have you been thinking about it in the short term? What do you hope for in the long term?
Well, I think to get something covered, really, at a fundamental level, it's a cost benefit equation that health systems are trying to solve. There's not really anyone that has had firsthand experience with these scans that don't see the benefit for the patient. But we need to prove that at population scale, and we need to be able to do that cost effectively. And so we just kicked off a clinical trial in Boston a few weeks ago where we aim to evaluate 100,000 patients and scan them and then track their health over time to see how good these scans are at predicting clinically significant disease in the year or two after those scans. We hope that the evidence from that trial is going to help us engage with health systems, with a view to having these being covered for the population at large. At the same time, we can also work on the cost side of the equation. So we're working towards a scan that we hope will be in the $300 to $500 range in the coming years. And there comes a certain point where the scan is cheap enough, the consumer pool is strong enough, where it gets really hard for insurers and employers and health systems to ignore covering these exams.
I love that. I think we are in such a revolutionary moment in healthcare between medicine meeting AI because of access to scans like this, the amount of information that can be put in a patient's hands, the fact that electronic medical records, you can actually now own all of your data in one place and really be the best steward of your own health. What do you see coming in the next 5 to 10 years? I would love to have this be the hopeful point of view, the big optimistic point of view. What do you see, Andrew, as somebody who's sitting, at the forefront of thinking about proactive, playing offensive medicine?
Well, I see consumers really in the driving seat of their own healthcare, if I'm being totally honest. I mean, a lot of people ask the question, well, don't people have too much information about their own health? And the answer I have is we don't know anything about our health. The average citizen in the world doesn't know anything about what's going on. They know more about the state of their car that they drive in. They don't know about the state of the body that they inhabit. And, we really want to change that. And I'm fundamentally pro consumer. That is, I don't think there's anyone that should or could care more about your health than yourself. And we've seen time and time again in the patients that we image that when they're provided with relevant information about the health, they make great health decisions. And so, I think the world that we want to create is one where consumers are driving intelligent choices around their healthcare. And some of those are just lifestyle modification. And some of that is then going and seeking treatment in the medical system. So I think if you change proactive medicine, you change everything downstream of that. So the clinical care pathways will change. If we catch everything early, the types of drugs that we might decide to research and bring to market will be completely different if we're catching disease like dementia or cancer at a very early stage. The way we even think about insurance might change if we're able to have much greater insight into exactly what's going on with our healthcare. And I think we will probably end up with a leaner and meaner healthcare system that is much more focused around precision medicine than we have today.
Sounds like a pretty bright future, Andrew. I'm excited about it. I want to talk a little bit about your go to market. I think many people have seen Prenuvo on Instagram, and you've had massive celebrities. I've had a few close friends recently post. Talk a little bit about your strategy on raising awareness for this product and what worked and what didn't work.
Yeah, I mean, it's the number one challenge that you face when you build a new category. This doesn't matter whether it's health or any other business category, is that customer acquisition can be a huge challenge. You can't do what's called bottom of funnel marketing because people aren't going on Google and searching for, in our case, whole body life saving scans. I mean, they don't even necessarily know that that category exists. So you have to look for different ways of spreading word of mouth. And we decided very early on to focus on, I guess, like most old fashioned form of that, which is just focus on delivering a great product and then encourage people to share their experience with friends, family, members, colleagues, and so on. And we noticed in the very early days, we would scan someone, we would find something, and then a whole bunch of people from their neighborhood would come in. I don't know who it was, the fathers playing poker or people walking their dogs, but like the word of mouth was spreading. And when we opened in LA and New York, we started to have a certain type of patient that had audiences in the millions. And when we provided a great service for them, they were really excited to tell that audience. And that's really helped tremendously propel the awareness that these life saving technologies even exist. And it's been a big and important part of our growth. And we would not be where we are today if it wasn't for folks out there with audiences really sharing their experience.
That's wonderful. No, I mean, the stories are profound also. It's people who found that they had a critical issue that actually was solvable, but it wouldn't have been if had they not known it. And I've even heard stories just from my own friends of friends who have had these scans and found things that were frankly just genuinely life-saving.
We give people an app where you get all your images. And most medical exams, you don't get the image data unless you go through some sort of Byzantine process of like requesting it by fax. And there is nothing that's not out in the open in these images. And people will take it out at a dinner party and show everyone around the table the photos of them. So I don't know when was the last time someone was so excited about a medical service that they were willing to show their most intimate photos to a whole bunch of strangers just to encourage other people to consider this for themselves.
I'm only giggling because I did do that with a few of my girlfriends. I was like, look at these images. Isn't this amazing? This is my brain. Look. No, I mean, it's incredible. I deeply agree with you. And I think just again, as a mother of three, I look forward to this shift where we can control our health because we can play offense. And if you think about where in your life should you spend money, this is probably one of the best things in your entire life that you can spend money on, which is why I've given it as gifts to a number of people. And we'll be right back after a message from our sponsors. Alexa here. Not only do I get the opportunity to speak with all types of founders on For Starters, but I'm a repeat founder myself. We all know how vital fundraising is to a startup. Carta knows this too. That's why they had founders in mind when they created their fundraising suite, providing tools and support to take the friction out of fundraising. They save founders time and money, allowing you to focus on your goals, not the admin work needed to close a round. From simply issuing safes to quickly receiving funds, Carta Fundraising Suite helps their cap table customers raise a better fundraising round. To learn more or to get started, go to carta.com/fundraise. That's carta.com/fundraise.
The IKEA Business Network is now open for small businesses and entrepreneurs. Join for free today to get access to interior design services to help you make the most of your workspace, and employee well-being benefits that will help you and your people grow, as well as amazing discounts on travel, insurance, IKEA purchases, deliveries, and more. Take your small business to the next level when you sign up for the IKEA Business Network for free today at IKEA.com.
Andrew, I want to shift to you, especially as a repeat entrepreneur who sold your last company to Disney, who's from Australia. Let's go back to the beginning. I love to ask this question, especially as a mother and a repeat entrepreneur myself. What happened, do you think, in your childhood that is straightest direct line to you being a repeat successful entrepreneur?
Wow. I mean, I have to be honest, I had a pretty normal upbringing. I guess my mother taught me to read very early. And I think that was sort of very important. My father is a very inquisitive person that always wanted to understand how things work. And so I grew up always asking kind of why questions. I was so infuriatingly annoying asking why questions that I would get detention at school for asking why a video camera worked or, how the lights worked in a soundstage or something. So I guess I was always very inquisitive, but I have to be honest, like Australia is very far away from entrepreneurship. And especially back in those days, the early days of, say, the internet bubble. I mean, for us, you would go to yahoo.com and it was just, you didn't even understand it was a company. You just thought it was a web page that sort of magically appeared. And it was only when I took my first trip to Silicon Valley, and I remember rollerblading down El Camino Real in Palo Alto, and we rollerblading right past Yahoo's office. And I'm like, oh my, this is like a big company. They may have 1,000 employees back then. And I started to realize that there was this completely different world that I was not exposed to. And I found every reason I could to come back to the Bay Area in the years that came. And the first opportunity I could find, I decided to quit the law, which I had studied, leave Australia behind, and come and work for a tech company. Unfortunately, no one would hire me. So the only real opportunity I had to work in entrepreneurship was to build my own company. And now that's the only thing I'm really qualified to do.
I feel like people have said before that most entrepreneurs are unhireable. um, that's ringing true here. Andrew, as somebody who deeply loves America and is very patriotic personally, You've said that you moved to the United States because you wanted to be an entrepreneur and that you felt being here was better. And you kind of just touched on that. It's an important and hopeful reminder of America. Can you tell us how you view that as somebody who was born and grew up in Australia?
I've worked in Australia, I've worked in Europe, and I've worked in the US. And I would say, I mean, a lot of people talk about funding and things like this. For me, the culture is so important. And I remember in the Bay Area, you would go to a cafe and just sort of eavesdrop on the conversation on the table next to you. And people, at least in the Bay Area, were talking about companies and what they were doing and ideas. And I think back in Australia, we were very focused on having a great lifestyle. And particularly when I worked in Europe, I mean, the people around you, if you worked late or on the weekend on a startup, people thought that, you were crazy if you were the CEO. And if you were the employee, they said that you were being exploited. And so there's no other, I think, place in the world where there's just such a high concentration of people that really want to change things and are willing to work hard and invest and really sweat it out to build transformative companies. And I think everything else follows from that. The fundraising, all the other enablers really just come from like the culture, to be honest.
I appreciate that. There's a cultural undertone here in the United States where you can look at a stranger and say, I'm going to build something that I think should exist. And people say, good luck. Cool.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about you as a repeat entrepreneur. Prenuvo is not your first entrepreneurial journey. You've built a number of companies, including a company called Tabulous that was later acquired by Disney. Talk a little bit about what you've learned by being a repeat entrepreneur and what did you take with you each time that continually made you better?
Well, I think, and I laugh, but I think, third or fourth time is the charm because the danger I sort of manifested in having my first company be successful is I convinced myself that a lot of that success had to do with me and other sort of extraneous factors like choosing the right market or getting the right moment or just plain luck, was not relevant. And I left that first startup feeling like it didn't matter what I did. The second company that I did was going to be automatically successful because I was the most important ingredient. And my second startup took 2 or 3 years really beating that out of me and realizing that, to be honest, of course, experience in entrepreneurship is important and repeat founders are more likely to be successful. But I think you need to have some failures along the way to realize that we're only one ingredient in that success. And I actually came away from that experience of that second startup committing to myself that I would never build another company that was my own idea because it was too easy to convince myself that I sort of understood things better than anyone else. And so I focused from that moment on to just connect to as many people as possible and just told the universe, hey, I'm available. I want to build something else. What's out there? Who's working on interesting things and what challenges can I help solve? And ever since that second startup, I've only worked on projects with other folks where, they have a real intimate understanding of the market.
You're touching on a really important point, actually, which is an insight about how important humility really is in building something special.
100% the most important determinant of success is like just choosing a great idea or a great space. And there's, I think, in the Silicon Valley, a lot of revisionist history where you see these like successful founders and they maybe get interviewed on podcasts like this and they sort of see it as a good opportunity to sort of like remake their history and remake it in a way that it feels like the success that they had was completely inevitable. And I think I graduated from an MBA class at Stanford of 350 people, probably 100 of which became entrepreneurs and serial entrepreneurs. We're probably between us, we've done like 300 companies, and that wasn't 300 successful companies. And the quality of talent in that class was quite high. So luck and timing and everything else is just so critically important. And I'm a bit nervous that people see the Silicon Valley sort of success story as a roadmap that I don't think is very realistic for success. The average successful founder did not drop out of high school or college and write something on a napkin, and then Andreessen Horowitz comes about and like invests $20 million, and then the rest is history. That's just not how it works. And if people are taught that that's the way it works, then when the going gets tough, they won't necessarily have the mettle and the endurance to like get through those tough periods that every startup has, no matter how seasoned you are as an entrepreneur.
Totally. I see the same thing you see, which is that To build incredible companies, you need world-class people around you that believe in you, but really you believe in them. And you have to have a level of humility and paranoia because most of what you do will fail. And it's about being able to have the fortitude to see the one thing that starts to work and then run towards it quickly and the agility to do that. And I actually think repeat entrepreneurs, it's for the love of the game. We're often pretty crazy where we just love this sport and getting better at this sport. I don't know if you feel the same way.
There's one weird thing. I'd be curious if this also resonates with you is one thing you do have as a serial entrepreneur is you've seen a lot of highs and lows. So I do have a lot of resilience in the sense that if today is a really bad day, I've seen bad days before, and I know the day after a bad day can be a great day. You don't sort of take it on emotionally the same way you would sort of earlier in your entrepreneurial journey. It sort of works both ways too. When you have a great day, I don't find myself able to celebrate it as much as I maybe would have earlier in my career because I've had great days followed by bad days. So you end up being in some ways a little bit sort of like emotionally, I guess, have a lower emotional range as a result of being an entrepreneur, as a result of having these ups and downs.
You nailed it. At the beginning of entrepreneurship, you literally are on a roller coaster, and literally people have called it self-induced roller coaster emotions. And by the time that you've done a few times, you just become more stable. I want to talk a little bit about building a company is stressful, Andrew. And as someone who's literally building in healthcare, how do you manage stress? What are your tips? And especially as somebody who's built many, many, many companies, what are your quick tips for managing the really bad days and getting yourself back mentally in the arena?
It's a great question. And I wish I was a better advocate of living a perfect life health wise. I think there's two value propositions for what we do at Prenuvo. The first value proposition is I am overworked, and for God's sake, I want to make sure that nothing crazy is going on with my health because I'm trying to build a better future that I hope to be around for. And I think that's how I use my product. And so, if anything, it's my insurance to continue to work hard and hopefully make a positive change for the world. And there are other folks that are very focused on diet and sleep and exercise and so on. I am more in the former camp than the latter camp. I wish I wasn't. The one thing I do is I don't have any meetings before 10 a.m. And this is because I've learned that sleep is probably the most important lever for stress for myself. And I tend to work late at night. Like I get a lot of creative energy after dinner. And so I can be working away and all of a sudden look up and see it's 2 o'clock in the morning. And if I know I have an 8 o'clock or a 9 o'clock meeting, I won't sleep. And if I don't sleep, the rest of my week is screwed. And like my stress levels are easily 2 or 3 times higher than they otherwise would be. So that's my little rule. It's just like as few as possible morning meetings so that I know psychologically I can sleep in if I have to.
That's such a good tip. And it's such an easy one to be like, sleep in, start later. You need the sleep. And I think sleep is an incredibly important ingredient to the emotional stability that we were just discussing. And when you don't have it, all bets are off. I'm going to move to a quick fire round where I'm going to ask you a question. And I just want the first thing that comes to mind. What gets you out of bed every day?
Receiving messages unsolicited on LinkedIn or emails from people whose life we've saved. It's incredibly motivating.
What is an interview question you love to ask to figure out if somebody should be on your team?
When I'm hiring someone for a role, often I'll ask them, what aspect of this role that you're applying for, if you were to teach a class, you would teach about and why? And I think it helps me understand what they consider themselves expert at, what can they communicate, what their leadership skills look like, and usually throws them, which I enjoy.
What's one thing you wish you knew before you started Prenuvo?
I guess the more transformative the idea, the more indistinguishable it is from crazy. In the sense that if every startup was sort of like graded on a bell curve, it's kind of easy to tell the good ones from the bad ones, but it's really hard to tell the incredible ideas from the craziest ideas. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand that. And I think a lot of investors don't understand that either.
I love that. What's a quote you live by? Quote, motto, something that just kind of is like deep in your head every day.
That quote by Mary Oliver, what would you do with your one wild and precious life? And constantly evaluate if what I'm doing is heading me in the direction of that goal I have in life. And if not, course correct as soon as possible.
I love it. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today. Everybody out there, if you want to learn more about Prenuvo, check out Prenuvo.com. That's Prenuvo.com. And you can join us next week for a new episode of For Starters with Alexa Von Tobel. Andrew, we're absolutely rooting for you. Thank you so much for what you're doing for society. Onwards and upwards.
Thanks, Alexa. Appreciate the time.